Welcome to the first episode of Dominion by Design podcast. So I'm super excited to be with you today and to launch this podcast about a movement, a belief system, a way of life that I have bought into for the past 7 years. And it's something that I'm excited to share with you. And so I'm specifically designing the content of this podcast for a very specific person and purpose. And honestly, that is someone who is just like me, a man who's over 40, who's a husband, a father, and also an entrepreneur. So I know that's a very specific person. And obviously, there are principles that I'm going to be sharing that could apply to a lot of people, but that is specifically who I'm talking to in the content of this podcast. And talking about something called the Have It All lifestyle, the warrior's way to having it all. This was a belief system that I encountered about 7 or 8 years ago through a man called Garrett J. White. He's directs a movement of men called Wake Up Warrior. And I got involved with this, and I bought his book, and I started reading it, and I started applying the principles of this belief system, of this movement, and it changed my life. And it's something that I've continued to, I've walked away from it a million times, I've come back to it a million times, because there's something about it that always draws me back in. So what is this concept of having it all? Well, our lives can basically be divided up into 4 different areas, okay? And so in Warrior, we call those the B's: body, being, balance, and business. What do those mean? So body, clearly, that's our physical body. Being is our spirit, or our connection with the divine, God, universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, that tapping into that spiritual part of us. Body, being, balance. So those are our relationships. Your relationship with your bride, your relationship with your children, your relationship with your friends. Body, being, balance, and business. That's our money. That's our ability to go out and produce and create wealth. Now, the concept of the have-it-all lifestyle is that typically we can tend to focus on 1, 2, maybe 3 of these, but we feel like it's impossible to actually have success in all 4 areas at the same time. I know that's something that I personally struggled with. So I've always been an athlete. I've always been into health and fitness. I've always been into maintaining my body. And so weightlifting, running, sports, they've always been a part of my life. And so that's always been something I've been passionate about is having a body that can perform at a high level. And so that's something I've always invested time in it. I've been better at it sometimes than others, because when the other areas of my life were somewhat crazy, I feel like that was something that would drop off. Okay. So I dreamed about getting married. I dreamed about having a family. I dreamed about going into the ministry. But it seems like at times these 4 can compete with each other. I mean, when I got married, my wife and I would collide about the time that I would spend in the gym, because, she would say that she was jealous of that. When we had kids, that was crazy. When you have children, the late nights with newborns and all that, it can seem to wreck your diet and your exercise and all those things. And so it felt like, well, to be a really good dad, or really good husband, well, then I've got to give up on this over here. But I was never willing to. I always fought for that, because it's something that I felt like was really good, not only for my physical health, but my mental health as well. So these 2 things seemed to collide for me. And my connection with God, and then also my business, which I was a pastor for 25 years. And so those 2 seem to go together for me, of, creating a strong connection with God, but then also being a pastor. And that spilled into the other areas of my life as well. But then there were times as a pastor where life would just get crazy. And there was our story is, which I will go into much greater detail later in my podcast, is we had some really great experiences in the church and some really painful experiences in the church. My family wore the weight of my wife and I being in the ministry. And we had, like I said, really positive experiences, but then really negative ones too, that my kids and my bride bore the brunt of. So then there's an example of where business and my relationship with my wife and my kids seem to collide. So is it possible? Is this idea of the have it all lifestyle, of having all four areas work together in sync, actually pouring power into each other, is that even possible? I'll be honest with you. It's something I've often on wrestled with in this for many times. Many times I'll go, no, this isn't possible. And it's like I want to throw it away. But I keep coming back to it because I think, man, maybe it is possible. Maybe it is possible to have a healthy, strong body that can endure and perform at a high level, while at the same time having a strong, powerful connection with God and with the divine, while also having a strong connection with my queen and my children, while also being able to produce wealth within a business that I'm passionate about. Seems like a dream, doesn't it? But doesn't it seem like a dream that, if it is possible, that would be worth tapping into, would be worth chasing, would be worth trying to figure out? So many times I've thought maybe it isn't possible because it feels like this insanity. Like I'm just, the old circus act, where you're spinning plates, you get this one going and then, oh crap, I got to do this one. And you go back and forth. And many times I've wanted to give up on it. Many times I've thought, no, this isn't possible. I can't do this. I can't do this. But I recently returned to the scriptures. Again, part of my story is 6 months ago, I left being a pastor for a myriad of reasons. And part of me wanted to just walk away from my connection with God. And I did for a while. I gave up on prayer. I gave up on the Bible. I gave up on church. I gave up on all of it. But little by little, God never gave up on me, and he was always drawing me back. He was always drawing me back. And so little by little, I decided to come back. And so I started reading through the book of Genesis again, reading through this ancient tale. And there's a word that I continue to see in this writing, this ancient writing, this word dominion. When Adam and Eve are created, it's interesting what is said in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. Let us make man in our own image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion. What does that word dominion mean? Dominion is an old word. It's an old concept that we don't even seem to understand anymore. It's back to the concept of kings and queens, having dominion, having a kingdom, having power, having control, having the ability to produce, to create. Dominion. What if it was our natural state to be in dominion over our body? What if that was our natural state to be in dominion when it comes to our physical body, our health? And what if we just happen to live in a world that unfortunately just creates a lot of obstacles towards us experiencing our natural state, which is health, vitality, strength, endurance, and performance? What if we live in a world that just constantly creates obstacles for that? I believe that it does. Again, we're going to later on in episodes, we're going to drill deep into this concept of body. Today is just an overview, but we're going to spend an episode specifically just on health. What is our natural state? And what if we just encounter obstacles to it that prevent us from experiencing our natural state with this, which is health, vitality, energy, high performance, sexual health, a purpose in our body of continuing to experience our natural state, which is health? What if that is dominion? What if we're not meant to be fat and overweight and out of shape and experiencing disease and taking 12 drugs to go to sleep, drugs to have sex, drugs to wake up, drugs to keep our blood sugar down, our blood pressure down? What if that's not what we were meant designed to experience. See, my movement is called Dominion by Design. So when I read Genesis, it seems like to me that we were designed to have dominion, designed to have dominion over our physical bodies, designed to have dominion, designed to have control, designed to have power in our spirituality, our connection with the divine, our connection with the supernatural, our connection with God. We weren't designed to be disconnected from God. What do we see in Adam and Eve? They have this intimate connection with God. Now, regardless of what you believe about Genesis, whether Adam and Eve are real people, whether all this is a fairy tale or not, there are still great principles here of what I believe God designed for us to experience. Design number one, health, power, endurance, the ability to produce, to create in our physical body. What does he say? So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created male and female. And he blessed them. What did he say? And be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion. You know, it's a very natural thing for a man and a woman to create life. It is. I was just thinking about that. It doesn't have to be forced. Whenever it's forced, it's wrong. It's a very natural thing. And when I met Diane, man, there was an attraction there. There was this just primal urge to want to create life with her, to be intimate with her. Sex is this beautiful thing that just happens naturally. Why? Because there's just this primal urge within us to create life. It doesn't have to be forced. It just naturally happens that we create life, physical life. So we were designed to be creators, designed to have dominion, physically, spiritually, and then what else? Body, being, balance, connection. You were designed to be in relationship. Again, what do we see? What do we see in Adam? God creates Adam, and then he's like, this isn't good. This isn't good for this man to be alone. So then he creates a woman. He creates a woman who complements the man and who is strong in every way that he is weak. And together they can reflect the image of the glory of God. Men, God designs you to be in connection and relationship. I think so many times as men, we're so good at isolating ourselves. We're so good at withdrawing. We're so good at thinking that we don't need anybody or anyone else. And it's just simply not true. That's not what we were designed to experience. Dominion by design, our design was that we would be in connection, in relationship. That's why we want to get married. That's why we want to pledge our love to someone else, to a soul, to say, man, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. What? Creating something, creating a life, creating a family, being co-creators, creating. That's what God designed you to experience, men. Is dominion, health, vitality, strength in your physical body. Health, vitality, strength in your connection with God, with the divine. Health, vitality, strength in your connection, in your intimacy with your queen. And then with that family that you produce, a strong connection with your children. Not disconnected from your children, not with a house filled with chaos, not with a house filled with continual fighting and strife. Our homes are messy, but God designed us to be what? In connection. Co-creators. Dominion. Body, being, balance, and business. So what does he tell? What does he tell Adam and Eve? Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion. Go out and create. Go out and create. So for me, I've always been an employee. Maybe you're an employee. I have recently stepped into this crazy world of entrepreneurship. Being an employee is hard, but yet it's easy. It's hard in a lot of ways, but it's easy in the fact that you just have to do what you're told to do, right? Yeah, there's lots of challenges with being an employee. I've been an employee a lot. There's lots of challenges to it. But it's easy in the fact that you just show up and do what you're told to do. Entrepreneur is different. You set the rules. You're the one that has to come up with everything. It's up to you. It's a whole nother level of insanity. So now, in addition to being a man who wants to have a healthy body, a man who wants to have a healthy connection with God, a man who wants to have a healthy connection with my bride and with my children. Now I've taken on the insanity of now trying to create a business. Are you for real? It at times feels like too much, doesn't it? But again, my revelation this morning is, what if our natural state was to have a healthy body, was to be in connection with God, was to be in connection with our bride and with our children. And those three together actually gave us power to then produce within business. What if business wasn't something that pulled away from our family? What if our family wasn't something that pulled us away from business? What if these four things didn't compete, but they actually could work together synergistically? That by taking care of your body and your health, you're actually accessing more power to produce financially. What if by accessing and having that connection with God, that you actually accessed more power to produce financially in your business? What if by having that strong connection with your queen and with your children actually gave you access to more power to produce financially? What if they didn't compete? What if they actually worked together? What if your business fueled your goals, your dreams, and your desires when it comes to your family, your connection with God, your generosity, your purpose that you've been put on this earth? What if these four could actually work together, not against each other? That's the concept that we're going to continue to talk about. We're going to continue to chase here in this podcast of Dominion by Design. What if God put you on this earth to be healthy in all four areas? What if it wasn't something that you had to force? What if all of these were powers that you could actually plug into, access greater productivity, access greater power, access greater purpose, access greater clarity on why God does put you on this earth? What if you're not some haphazard random jumble of cells? What if you were actually knit together in your mother's womb with divine gifts, divine uniquenesses, divine passions, a unique personality, a unique gift set, a unique passion, a unique person that God has called you to serve? What if it could all work together? I know this is something I've been pursuing for years now, and I still at times wonder myself, is it really possible? It almost sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It almost does. But what if it is? What if it is possible to access this kind of power across all four areas of our life? Well, one of the biggest tools that we teach you in Dominion by Design is a tool called the stack. And the stack is designed for us to examine our stories, because our stories control our lives. See, the story that you tell yourself about your physical body, about your health, about your fitness, about your strength will dominate your life. You consume what you consume because of the story you tell yourself. And what you consume is either serving you or it's destroying you. It's either your medicine or it's your poison. And we tell ourselves a story about the food that we put in our mouth. We tell ourselves the story. It's either fuel or it's fun. And most of the time, the fun is poison, it's destroying us. And most of the time, the fuel is actually empowering us for health. The story that we tell ourselves about fitness, about exercise, or the lack thereof, about our strength. There are stories right now that I had to kill to go out and chase what I'm chasing right now. I am doing right now what I thought was impossible. I'm training to run a marathon. For decades, I always thought to myself, that's impossible. So I never did it. I never even thought about it. I told myself a story. I'm not a runner. I don't run. And so because of that, I was fat. Yeah, I lifted weights all the time, but I was overweight, and running was extremely difficult for me. Literally running a mile, I thought I was going to die. I had a training partner who wanted to run, and we lived in Cedar Rapids, and he just wanted to run down like a couple of blocks. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm not a runner. I'm not a runner. See, the story I told myself was a box. It put my physical body in a box. And so because of the story I told myself, there were certain things that I did and certain things that I didn't do. Why? Because I said I can't do those things. Anything in my life that I set out and accomplished is because I first had to change my story. One of the things I did a few years ago was I rode my bicycle across the state of Iowa. For decades, I said, that's impossible. I don't know why anyone would do that. I could never do that. So then I didn't do it. I had to change the story before I could change the fruit, before I could change the results that I was getting. I had to change the story first. So one of the powerful tools that we teach you in Dominion by Design is this tool of the stack, learning how to change your stories. It's until you examine your stories. Because right now, as I'm talking, your stories are playing out. Your stories are colliding with what I'm telling you. Oh, yeah, that sounds great to have a healthy body and a great connection, and all that sounds great, but that's just too good to be true. That's not even possible. Yeah, I've tried. So your stories are colliding with my stories right now. I'm telling you it is possible, and you're like, nah, I don't know. And I had to go through the same thing. When I experienced someone else describing this lifestyle, I wanted to dream about it. I wanted to think it was true, but my stories were colliding about, I don't know. Right now, your stories are colliding with this narrative. Stories I had to address when it came to my body. Stories I've had to continually address when it comes to my connection with God. Every time I've prayed a prayer and it's not been answered, I've been tempted to give up. But what's the point? Why do we believe in prayer? We just literally, there was a young lady who was in a car crash, and we were praying for her to be rescued, praying for her to be healed. She wasn't. She died. That's like one of the thousands of examples I can think of things that I specifically prayed for and didn't happen. It was a ding to my faith, because there's a story I'm telling myself, well, God should answer my prayer. If God isn't answering my prayer, maybe God isn't even real. Constantly addressing my stories when it came to my connection with God. Constantly addressing my stories when it come to my relationship with my queen, with my children. I had to constantly address those. Because your wife and your children will behave in such a way, and then what will you do? You'll go tell yourself the story. You'll act like a jerk, but you'll say it's all their fault. Because what? Because of the stories that you tell yourself. In business, I have to daily confront my stories when it comes to the ability to go out and make money, because I'm no longer an employee. Your stories that you tell yourself around money, around business, they are the box that you operate in. So let me ask you, what are the stories you're telling yourself right now? So many times I've found myself in a pit. I found myself in a pit physically. I have. I found myself in a place where I was fat, and this inability to be able to have the body that I wanted. I was constantly lifting weights, so it wasn't for lack of exercise. A lot of times my diet was crap. A lot of times it was stories I was telling myself. I wasn't healthy so many times in my life. I was exercising, but I wasn't healthy. I found myself in a pit. I found myself in a pit spiritually many times, where I just wanted to give up on it all. I don't believe in God. I'm mad at God. I've had to constantly pull myself out of a pit. I've had to pull myself out of a pit in my relationship with my bride. For many years, I was addicted to pornography. And I've had to climb out of that pit. I had to climb out of a pit financially, of being in a scarcity mindset, a poverty mindset. You may find yourself in a pit today, but I believe that there's a way out, because I've experienced it myself. I've experienced the path out of the pit physically. I'll tell you more about my story, but I've lost 40 pounds. Again, I'm now training for things that I never thought were possible, because I was given the rope. No one pulled me out of the pit, but I did have people show me tools and weapons that I could use to pull myself out of the pit. The pit that I was in physically, the pit that I was in spiritually, the pit that I was in relationally, the pit that I was in financially. I continue to stumble into the pit, but I've now have the tools which I know can help me quickly pull myself out of the pit. And those are the tools that we're going to teach you through Dominion by Design. So I'm so excited that you've joined me here for episode 1 of Dominion by Design. And we're going to, one at a time, we're going to walk through these principles. We're going to spend time talking about where are you at physically? Where are you at in your health? Where are you at in your relationship with God? Where are you at in your relationship with your bride and with your children? Where are you at when it comes to money? Where are you currently at? Let's get clear on where we're at, because we operate by a code, and that is that we tell the truth. We acknowledge the facts. We acknowledge where we really are. And that's what we're going to do through here in Dominion by Design. We're going to get honest about the facts. We're going to get honest about the facts. Let's get real. It's time for us to get real as men. It's time for us to stop pretending. It's time for us to stop living in the land of fantasy. It's time for us to get real about where we actually exist. And it's time for us to get raw. See, I am not scared by emotions. I am very comfortable tapping into my anger. I'm very comfortable tapping into my rage. I'm very comfortable in learning how to channel emotions. For so long, we've been taught, trained, and educated as men that we just need to shove down our emotions. We need to pretend like they're not there. We need to ignore them. We're only allowed to be happy. We're only allowed to be joyful. We're only allowed to just show up and do the work and put a smile on our face and act like everything's okay. It's time for us to learn how to tap into our real emotions. See, that's real, that's raw, and that's relevant. And that's what we're going to continue to talk more about, is how do we get what we really want? How do we get clear? See, real and raw is getting clear on where we really are. Relevant is getting clear on where we want to go. Relevant is getting clear on, okay, where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? What life do I want to have and body? What kind of life do I want to have in a connection with God? What kind of life do I want to have in connection with my bride and my children? What kind of business do I want to have? What kind of money do I want to have? What do I want? Real and raw is getting honest about where you are. Relevant is getting real and raw about where you want to be. Real, raw, relevant results. So we want to get clear on where we are. We also want to get clear on where we want to go, but then we need clarity on how do I get there? What's the path? What are the steps that I need to take? And that's when we start to get the fruit. So I'm going to encourage you to go to my website, dominionbydesign.com. You can check out more we do a 30-day challenge where we walk through and we teach you the tools of how you can begin to access this have-it-all lifestyle. Also, I'm going to continue to produce episodes of the Dominion by Design podcast once a week. And thanks so much for tuning in to those. And I'm believing that they're going to bring value into your life. As a man, as a husband, as a father, as a businessman, of getting clear on where you are, getting clear on where you want to go, and getting clear on how to get there, getting clear on learning how to step into principles of power, not working harder to produce more force, but learning how to partner with the principles of power that already exist. I'll leave you with this. I have never surfed before, but I've been to the ocean many times, and I see the power that the ocean represents. And I believe that so much of my life has been trying to force things to happen when the power already exists. I just need to learn how to jump on the surfboard and ride the waves instead of trying to create my own force. So long I've tried to force things when it comes to body, force things when it comes to my connection with God, force things when it comes to my connection with my bride and my kids, force things when it comes to money. When the reality is, it's just there are principles of power that we need to partner with. And that's what we're going to be talking about here in Dominion by Design. What are the principles of power that we can partner with to produce more when it comes to wealth, when it comes to profits, when it comes to purpose? We're going to uncover those together. And I'm so excited to be on this journey with you of learning these principles of power that we can step into. That maybe it is possible. Maybe that this have-it-all lifestyle isn't a fantasy. Maybe we can actually experience the fruit across body, being, balance, and business of those four actually working together, not against each other, but working in harmony to produce the kind of life they always dreamed possible. Because when you graduated from high school, you had dreams. I know you did, just like I did. You didn't dream of being fat and broke and out of shape and disconnected from your queen and your children. Nope, that was not the dreams that you had. What are the dreams? And let's learn how to chase those dreams together. That's what Dominion by Design podcast is all about. Thanks so much for joining me for episode 1. Thanks for liking, subscribing, and reviewing this podcast. And I will see you next week.